Josiah Bancroft is back with the first book in a brand new series called The Hexologist. I read it thanks to an advanced copy, so tune in for my non-spoiler review of the book.
This is Phantology.
You may have heard of us.
So first of all, let's get a few things out of the way. This is the first book in a new series, and sometimes people have some concerns about jumping into something that's not completed. In this case, I would not worry about that at all because you get a complete story in this one book. Even if there were no further entries, I would be totally satisfied with my reading experience here. It's about 400 pages, so fairly quick read in terms of epic fantasy. And there's really no objectionable content that you have to worry about, so I would be fine giving this to kids as well. Okay, high level, what is this book? What is this series? So it's an alternative reality urban fantasy, so definitely not Earth, but it kind of feels like Earth. It's like a pseudo-Victorian-esque setting, and there's some unique things to it that really make it work. We are following a team of hexologists, a husband and wife team that work together, and they do some hex magic that you'll discover. There are some other types of magic in the world as well. And our team of hexologists here, they solve mysteries. So this is a detective. It's a story that's very centered on this one detective case, but has a lot of potential to expand into a bigger series. It's a lot of setup of different things that I think will come to play as we get further into the series. But in the first book, it's very narrow focus on our one case, which still feels very important for kind of the fate of the kingdom, at least. But we're not dealing with fate of the universe type situations. It's kind of a slice of life, but I would say it's more strongly defined by just saying it's a detective story. Now, my overall opinion, I very much enjoyed this book. I thought it was a solid book that kept me reading, kept me turning pages, kept me chuckling, but also exasperated me at times, and I'll explain that emotion a little bit more here. Let me go into individual categories in my ratings and kind of break down more of what you can expect in the book. So first of all, characters, 8 out of 10. Our two main characters are Iz and Warren. These are our husband and wife hexologist team, and their relationship is great. It is uplifting. It is believable, and their characters really work together well. Both of them have a backstory that seems believable. They seem like these are lived-in characters that are not just there for our enjoyment. These seem like real people, and I think that really works, and Bancroft did a great job with these two characters. Iz and Warren really make the book. There are plenty of side characters. The side characters are fine. They are probably not anything too special to write home about. They exist for a short amount of time most of the time, then the case kind of moves on and leaves them behind, but it seems like we're setting up a cast of characters that we will probably revisit in future books, so I think this is all set up pretty well. Plot gets a 7 out of 10. I think this is a fairly straightforward detective-style mystery book, and there are twists and turns, as you would expect in any detective mystery. The twists and turns are executed well. They are not necessarily overly predictable, and when they happen, they were satisfying to me. However, I was not reading the book for the plot. I'm not a big mystery reader, so maybe some that are would enjoy it more. I mostly enjoyed the characters and the writing style, which I'll get to in a second. So the plot was really just kind of a vehicle for me to enjoy the rest of the book, if that makes any sense. At the end of the book, when, the whodunit was revealed, right, and we get kind of everything explained, I thought that was all satisfying, but that was not why I was reading. Setting earns a 9 out of 10, and I really enjoyed the setting. I thought it was set up very efficiently, where we didn't have really any info dump, boring parts. It was all kind of right there. It felt familiar enough where I was able to visualize what was going on, but also had plenty of unique elements that made it fun to read about and gave it kind of a fantasy feel. So I thought this was very well done. The alternative reality, urban fantasy, that's a long way to describe a setting, but I thought it worked really well. Prose gets an 8 out of 10, and interestingly, I think the main thing you'll see in reviews is going to kind of focus around the prose, which is not often the case, right? Usually we're talking about characters, plot, world building, whatever. But no, in this case, it's probably going to be prose. And I think a lot of people are either going to love it or hate it. And I had a little bit of both. When I first started reading, I loved the way it was written. Bancroft is an amazing writer. He's a fantastic wordsmith, has a huge vocabulary, and is flexing his muscles quite a bit in this book. And sometimes, unfortunately, I think to the detriment. So on the positive side, it's very witty and very funny throughout. Josiah can describe something, a simple scene or a character, and have you chuckling just in the way that he uses simile and metaphor and uses some words that uses words in ways you wouldn't normally see for a comedic effect and to describe something in a unexpected but also delightful way. So all of those things earn, chef's kiss. Excellent writing. However, I think sometimes he goes a little too far and it distracts from the story. And the main way he does it is with too many $10 words. My issue is here, as we got further into the book, I think I, as a reader, had to rely too much on thesaurus and looking individual words up. I think there are too many $10 words. I enjoy $8, $9 words. Fill up a book with plenty of those. As long as I can figure it out by context clues and have heard it before, I'm fine with that. I don't love the $10 words that I've never heard of before and probably never will again. That doesn't really do anything for me. Like, if I'm learning new $9 words, great, I can use those and become smarter. But some random word that I'm probably never going to see again, I don't care for that. And I don't think we have this is not gratuitous. It's not a crazy overabundance of $10 words, but at the same time, I could do with fewer. I think that it takes away too much from the story when I'm having to look up words, more than a few times throughout the course of a book. So that's the reason why I didn't like the prose. And honestly, if it wasn't for this, I would give it 10 out of 10. I think if he just simplified his word choice, like, the writing is fantastic. The way that he creates simile and metaphor and constructs sentences, that's all great. Like, do not back down from that at all. But I could do with fewer of the real highbrow words. We don't need quite as many of those, in my opinion. The pacing gets a 7 out of 10. I think it just meanders a bit and takes away from the plot, and it's a stylistic choice. I think that Josiah Bancroft is aware that the way he's writing the book does not do any favors to the plot. Like, a chapter will end on somewhat of a cliffhanger, and then we'll get a few paragraphs of some kind of non sequitur type anecdote or something clever, and then it'll lead back into the action, right? So that prose is kind of jarring, kind of strange. Not necessarily my favorite, but it works stylistically. It kind of creates, if you've read a series of unfortunate events, it's very similar to that, where Lemony Snicket starts off his books in chapters with some kind of random thing and ties it in, and it's witty and zany and funny, and we get a very similar feel here. I honestly didn't mind it a ton. I thought it was fine, but at the same time, it did take away from the story. I don't know if I would remove it, because that is the style. That is very much what he's doing. Like, this is the promise of the book, and he's fulfilling it with these types of weird, zany anecdotes and diversions from the plot. But sometimes it's too much. I don't know. I'm having a hard time deciding where exactly this lands. And I think part of the reason is because I've seen on Goodreads so far that it kind of has a lower than expected review. It's kind of hovering in like the 4.1-ish spot out of 5. And usually solid fantasy books are more like 4.4, 4.5 are for your medium to top tier books. And I would say it's higher than 4.1. I'm going to say my overall, after we add all these things up, is going to be 8 out of 10. But Goodreads kind of operates on this weird rating system where, 8 out of 10 becomes 4 out of 5, but that's too low for Goodreads. So if I had to give a Goodreads review, I'd probably say more like 4.4 out of 5. And so overall, I'm going to say recommend without fail, without reservation to your friends, unless they are lacking a sense of imagination or wit.